I'm going to turn now to the slogans from the 7 points of mind training. And they are all very good and worth studying and learning about. But one of them is, this is slogan number 55, liberating oneself through considering and examining. And what this means is that we need to consider ourselves. You could say considering and contemplating. Considering is, you might say, gathering the facts. And then examining is putting the facts into place, see how they fit together like pieces of a puzzle. And you might say getting a clearer picture of what is happening. I liked the way that Tralek Rinpoche, this is a quote from his book, Lojong, The 7 Points of Mind Training. So here is the quote. A detective will investigate a particular case and then examine the evidence, analyzing the crime in both general and specific terms. If we approach our mental processes in this manner, we will solve many of our problems and clarify much of our confusion. Learning to know our minds honestly and fearlessly through these methods will liberate us from self-obsessive thoughts and overcome our mental dullness. Now, meditation is also part of the 7 points of mind training, but this part of examining and then contemplation is extremely important, that what we will find will help us work with our confusion, our mental afflictions. Another one of the slogans is work on the strongest affliction first. If you have anger as being the strongest affliction, don't work on your pride. Work on anger first. And when you have some results from that, then maybe turn your attention to pride, if that is the second one. I like to say this, for those of you, we're all Americans, and probably most of us have applied for jobs. And our mental afflictions, I'm going to use the example of applying for a job. So you're having a problem with life. Take your pick, whatever is your favorite problem at the moment. So we will chew on this, go over and over it in our minds. We'll talk with our friends and present the problem in a way that will make them agree with us. And it's like we're applying for a job. And then we have a resume, and we'll say, and this person did this, did that, did this, da 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 da. So I've had all these experiences with this very difficult person that I'm angry at. And then we have a specialty. And in this case, our specialty is our anger. But then we have another area that we have a competency in, and maybe that is the pride. They're making you feel like they're superior to you, and that's what really is making you angry, when you know you're superior to them. In fact, I overheard this conversation once of two workers, and the one said, and I told him, I don't understand why you don't understand me. So there we are. We've got our letter of recommendation from our friends who agree with us. We've got our resume, and we have a specialty and a competency. And that's the way we go through life. So work on the one that is your specialty, the klesha that is your specialty. Work on that first. And when that's no longer the most important one, then work on the one that is the most important one. So now it is important to not be too harsh on yourself. It's really important to see your faults, your mistakes, your errors, and so on and so forth. But you do not improve by beating yourself up. That's just more of the same old, same old. That if you have ever worked with a dog, and that's the animal that I'm most familiar with, you train a dog by rewarding them for good behavior, and you hold off the punishment unless there really is not much else. And what I have been told by people that do work with dogs is, if you are going to punish a dog, the time to do it is when they are actually engaged in the action you don't want them to do. Not 10 minutes later, not 5 minutes later, but during the actual act. And I think this is good advice for us. Going back into the past and then having this internal critic talking about what a bad person we have been because we've done this resume of all these things that we have done wrong. We're not talking about what's happening right now. You're talking about what has happened, and nothing can be done about it, other than it can be purified. If it's really something that is bad, well, then confess it and purify it and let go of it. What I have found is a lot of times what we punish ourselves for are totally ridiculous and based on ego. For instance, being at a dinner party, and then an hour after the meal is done, you go to the bathroom, you look in the mirror, and there you are. You got some spinach stuck between your teeth, and you've been smiling all night long. And you go, oh, crap. I'm so embarrassed. I made a fool of myself. And well, this is humbling. But I don't believe you created any negative karma. It's really not that bad, but we can get this inner critic can really get down on us for doing things like that. For men, it might be, forgetting to pull your zipper up. wearing a white shirt to a spaghetti supper. I recommend wearing colors like this to spaghetti suppers. The point being that this is embarrassing, but that's all. It's that, ego doesn't like it, but that's fine. That's not a problem. And by looking within, you can start seeing these things and you can start working with them. If it really is that bad an action, purify it with a confession and mantra and other practices. The only good thing about bad karma is that it can be purified. So beating yourself up about it doesn't purify anything. It just keeps you stuck in the same place. It just makes your world very, very small. So purify it and then let go of it. And if it comes up again, well, purify it again. Comes up again, well, purify it again. No problem. We frequently get stuck in the, there are two directions we can go. See my fingers disappearing. One is when difficult things come up, and I've kind of been in this place talking about it, is that you blame yourself. I'm continually causing problems. I'm continually screwing up. I'm no good. I never have been any good. Life has been hard. Yada, yada, yada. And it just leads to a feeling of powerlessness and hopelessness. Blame, by the way, is considered a worldly affair and not considered really spiritual. And the other approach is that you're blaming other people and saying that I'm a victim. I'm getting screwed. The system is rigged. And so on and so forth. And then there you are. And when you are a victim, of course, your only, you might say, recourse is that you have to change the world. So they're no longer victimizing you. And well, that might be you might want to try it, but I doubt if you will succeed. If you try to destroy enemies, what frequently happens is for every enemy you destroy, many more appear. And you just create enemies by trying to destroy enemies. And people have tried to change the world, tried to conquer the world. And it really never lasts. And it usually doesn't even come close to succeeding. And in the end, you die anyway. So being a victim just causes you to feel, again, hopeless and helpless. Poor me, poor me. When you're blaming yourself, you end up feeling helpless and hopeless and poor me, poor me. Maybe even I've sat in on AA meetings and I've even heard them say, poor me, poor me, pour me another one, or leading to some other kinds of harmful behavior to kind of cover up all the inner turmoil. And in fact, that leads me into talking a little bit about laziness, because I think laziness is a good topic, because this kind of tends to underlie the whole process of the mental afflictions. You could say that anger is the lazy solution to the problem. Instead of working with it, you just get angry. Uh, Depression is the lazy solution to the problem of blaming yourself. And so in Buddhism, there are three types of laziness. The first type of laziness is, I call it couch potato laziness. I don't know what the technical Tibetan term is. Interestingly enough, the Tibetan word for lazy, I'll tell you, and I will guarantee you, you will all remember it. I'm going to teach you a Tibetan word. The Tibetan word for lazy is lay low. Lay low. Lay means action. I'm not sure what low means, but this is the Tibetan word for lazy. So I'm going to be talking about lay low. So the first type is couch potato. And that is just as it sounds. You lay on the couch, you've got the remote in your hand. Maybe you've got a beer over here or something else, maybe some other substance. And you don't do a whole lot. When you wake up in the morning, you start thinking of all the things that you've got to do, and you realize that I can't face this. I'll never be able to do this. I think I better go back to sleep. And you go back to sleep, and then at 10 o'clock, you get out of bed, you eat breakfast, and by this time you're exhausted, and maybe you take a nap on the couch while you're watching television, and so on down the line. So that's the first type of laziness, just doing very, very little. All the time, your mind is going wild. Your mind is incredibly active, and it's full of thoughts of how bad you are and da, 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 da. The second type of laziness is compulsive busyness, where again, you're avoiding doing what needs to be done, and you feel like you're accomplishing something because you're keeping busy. But what you're doing really is not important, or certainly not as important as what needs to be done. Video games, surfing the net, shopping, cleaning. By the way, if that is your busyness, you're welcome to come over and visit me. I might even pay for your transportation. But to go on here seriously, there's just all kinds of busynesses that we can get involved in. And they keep us from doing what is important. They keep us distracted. They keep us same old, same old. And the third type of laziness is self-deprecation, which is, oh, I could never succeed, so I'm not going to try. And all of these keep us stuck. All of these things keep us stuck. So for the couch potato laziness, it's a very simple solution. This is what the Tibetans say. If you are sitting and a poisonous snake falls in your lap, You do something. You get up. You don't think about, well, what kind of a snake is this? I wonder how poisonous it is. How old is this snake? Where did it come from? Yada, yada. No, you get up and do something. You get away from the snake. If you know what you're doing, grab it right behind the head. And so on and so forth. You do something. And Nike, what is it? Just do it. It's the same thing. Just do it. Don't think about it, because if you think about it, there are going to be 100 reasons why uh, you shouldn't do it, or you're going to do the wrong thing, or you don't have enough information to make a decision, or I should be doing something else. I should be doing this video game or making this telephone call or whatever. Just do it. Cut out the internal discussion that you need to do something right now. And for the compulsive busyness, it really means sitting back and taking a look deeper into what you are doing, and factor in impermanence, that uh, your material possessions, your house, your car, it's all impermanent. Be your body, and this is even more important, your body is impermanent. You could die at any time. This is what brought me to the Dharma, was when my best friend was killed, and many of you have heard this story, but it made me look at my life from the viewpoint of, if I could die at any moment, what am I doing in my life that is significant? And this was before I had a Buddhist contact. And my answer was not very good, because it was, I don't have anything that really is significant and is going to go beyond the point of death or even help me. At that time, I felt, and then when you're dead, and that's it. And it's like, what am I busting my tail about here in life? And it's important. It's important, A, to realize your Buddha nature and your potential in terms of bodhicitta, and taking into consideration that you take your karma with you when you die, and this directs you towards your next life. This will help you decide what's important and what isn't important in life. And the third, about self-deprecation, your Buddha nature is just as good as a Buddha's, and that you are capable of accomplishing a lot if you try, and you have aspirations. Aspirations are the most important thing in Tibetan Buddhism, that if you have good aspirations, you might achieve them, or achieve part of the aspirations. And we make vast aspirations. We aspire to liberate all sentient beings when we take the Bodhisattva vow. Not, well, I will aspire to liberate as many as I can. Nope, that's a partial aspiration. And needless to say, this aspiration has been made by countless millions, billions of Buddhists over the millennia, and there are still countless beings that need to be liberated. These aspirations are to be understood at that level, that it requires courage. I talked about courage earlier. And but if you don't have these aspirations, you will never accomplish it. So don't sell yourself short. Keep realizing, contemplating, and perhaps studying what Buddha nature is and the nature of mind. That this will help us go in a positive direction and not give up, not take the easy way out. And quite honestly, all of this leads to being happy. I don't think lazy people are happy. I think there's a lot of suffering in being lazy. This, again, is my own experience. And when I first started meditating, when I first came in contact with Buddhism, I was on a very strong antidepressant medication, and I was seeing a psychiatrist. And I was not happy. However, I was really tired of where I was. I was really tired of being depressed. And so with this talk on these blaming yourself, I'm kind of speaking from my own experience. And what I realized was that, again, I had a very, very narrow, closed mind and viewpoint, that this is the way it was. The reason why other people weren't depressed and didn't see things like I saw things was because they were wrong and I was right. And later I realized well, it's just a viewpoint, and that I could change my viewpoint. And we all can change our viewpoint. And in fact, life is constantly changing. Cars are constantly changing. Clothing styles are constantly changing. The English language is constantly changing. Again, when I was younger, the only place you'd find a menu would be in a restaurant. And now that's probably one of the lesser used meaning of the word menu. When I got out of retreat, you make a phone call and you'd get a menu. And I'm not talking about calling a restaurant. And I don't have to go into the digital world. Menus are ubiquitous. And those kinds of menus never existed until recently. So things are constantly changing, and we need to, shall we say, open our minds to impermanence and change. I saw a bumper sticker a number of years ago that I really liked, and that was that our minds are like a parachute. They only work when they're open. So having an open mind is good, and maybe this is a good time to open this up to questions. So pause the record button again. The question was about how do you purify? And there are 4 elements of purification. And for simply helping to remember this, I call it, and this is my own category, the 4 R's, like the letter R. And the first is reliance. And so visualize or imagine the presence of the Buddha, your guru, Galwan Karmapa, somebody like that. The second is regret. So think about what you did and have regret about it. And regret is different than guilt. Regret is that I've done these things. They're actions that I have done, but this is not my essential nature. And since they're not your essential nature, they can be purified and removed. Guilt is, this is my essential nature, and that cannot be purified and removed. So guilt is like trying to turn a lump of coal white. And remorse is trying to clean some dirt off of a diamond where it hasn't harmed the diamond in any way whatsoever, but it's a problem because it's lodged on the diamond. So that's the difference between remorse and guilt. Again, when we go down the path of guilt, we start thinking, well, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. In fact, I'm constantly doing all these really bad things. I'm a bad person, not that, as opposed to I've engaged in some bad actions. The third is the remedy. And there are a number of different remedies. One would be a simple confession prayer. And if you have done the Nyungne with me or anybody else, there is the 35 Buddhas or the Three Skanda Sutra that is a long confession prayer. And then there is a shorter confession prayer that is done in the Nyungne, and it is usually repeated 3 times. This prayer is something that I will try to teach on in the near future because it's an important one. And then simply you can do the Vajrasattva mantra, which we do at the end of some of these practices like green Tara, white Tara, Nyungne, and so forth. And if you have done Nundro, you've got the Vajrasattva practice. Rinpoche felt that the Vajrasattva practice was essential for his students to know and to use. The Vajrasattva mantra is very powerful for purification purposes. The short Vajrasattva mantra with the Tibetan pronunciation is Om Benza Sato Hung. Om Benza Sato Hung. And so that is the remedy. Those are different remedies. The fourth R is resolve. And this is to resolve not to do it again. And if you do it again, because it's quite possible a habitual pattern, then you engage in the 4 R's again and go through the whole thing. There's a lot of repetition in Tibetan Buddhism, and repetition works. So that is how you purify these negative actions. And again, it's important to not go down the road of blaming yourself and thinking that you are a bad person because you've engaged in negative behavior, that these are just superficial actions that you have engaged in, and they do not harm your essential nature, your essential purity, your primordial wisdom, and so on and so forth. The question was, what is the Vajrasattva mantra? It is intended to purify any mistakes that we have done while doing the practice. So, for instance, I have, at my center, we do a lot of Nyungne, and I've had people say, well, I'm going to be making mistakes, and I'll probably be in worse shape after the Nyungne than before it, because I'm going to make so many mistakes. And of course, this goes back to laziness, self-deprecation, but the point is that this is why it is done at the end of the Nyungne too, to purify any mistakes that we make, loss of attention, and so on and so forth during the actual practice. So it's a really important mantra to know and to do when things come up that you want to purify. So I have been talking about laziness, about purification, and so on and so forth. But it is always good to look at our thoughts and let go of them. Here is a quote that I like by Chandra Kirti. Common folk are fettered by their thoughts. Without such concepts, yogis are set free. The very halting of discursiveness is fruit of true analysis, the wise have said. So what this means is that when we're meditating, we're not trying to have no thoughts, because that will never happen if you try. That would be like saying, I'm trying to forget. Or a teaching that I have heard Mingyur Rinpoche give, which is that we're going to meditate now, and you can think of anything you want to while you're meditating, except for cheese curds. Do not think of cheese curds. He says this in Minnesota. You might say it in Wisconsin, but when I heard it was Minnesota. There are other parts of the country in the world where this might not get a smile. It would more get like a, huh? So then he rings the singing bowl and we're meditating. Don't think of cheese curds. And of course, everybody laughs. The point being that we don't halt discursiveness by forcing it or going in, disassociating and going into a blank state. That it is accomplished by analyzing, looking into, and eliminating the source of the discursiveness. And of course, it is for us a goal that takes a lot of practice, a lot of examination, and so forth to attain. But I think all of us can agree that if we look within, that we think way more than we need to, that our thoughts seem to be guiding us around rather than us guiding our thoughts around. that we can become the master of our thoughts rather than the slaves. And we can use our mind to travel the path rather than use our mind to blame ourselves and beat ourselves up or blame others and feel like a victim. I guess it's also important to understand the difference between relative reality and ultimate reality. And relative reality is this world that we live in and that others live in, that we have ideas about our experience, the objects of our experience, other people, and so forth. And we have a lot of shared karma, and we experience things similarly. Whereas now some of you have dogs and cats, and they experience things very differently to us. A simple example that I like to use, now this is what I use to hit the singing bowl. And let's see here. Now, if I hold it in front of my face, you can see it. If I had a dog and would throw this, my dog, which was a Labrador Retriever, he would go get it and bring it back. It was not something that you would strike a singing bowl with. So, what is it? You know, is it a doggy toy, or is it a striker for a singing bowl? It's both. My parents, now, while they were still alive, they moved and were cleaning out, and they had a much larger version of this singing bowl. And they're not Buddhists, but they had visited India and probably Nepal and bought it there and brought it back. And they had a potted plant in it. So what is it? Well, it's a singing bowl and it's a holder for a potted plant. And I could take it to a scrap metal dealer and he would say it's brass and weigh it, and then he would give me some money for it. You know, it's all of these things. In relative reality, it's what we project on them. But we believe that our thoughts are real and our thoughts are right. So it's important to understand this. If you are hungry, try this. Instead of eating, just think about a fantastic feast you had one Christmas. Keep thinking about that all day long and see if that will help your hunger. Because if your thoughts were real, obviously that would be the same as eating, remembering it. But I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that it would probably make you hungrier, maybe even a little ornery as the hunger got stronger. Uh, and we believe that our thoughts are real. And so this is a really important point to make, that in relative reality, what we are experiencing is our projections. We think they are real. So I'm going to bring up, this is one thing I like about Zoom. I'm going to bring up a a work of art. So you can all see that, I think. And so this is a famous work of art by a surrealist. And it says in French, it's Rene Magritte is the artist, and this is worth millions, this simple painting. It says, "This is not a pipe." And of course, he's toying with us, the viewer. And in his own words, this is a paraphrase, "This is not a pipe because you cannot smoke it." It's merely a picture of a pipe. It's not a real pipe. And on here is the word pipe. It's the French word is even spelled the same way as the English word. And the word pipe is not a pipe. You cannot smoke it. I believe he used the word fillet, but to kind of, you might say, fill it out. You can't fill it and smoke it. And the thought pipe is not real. You cannot fill it and smoke the thought pipe. So it's really important to understand how our thoughts fit in. We can work with them, we can examine, analyze, go back, remember, and so on and so forth. But in the end, you have to realize that it is just thought. It's nothing more than thought. They help us navigate this relative world. It's really good to be able to read when you're driving, so you can follow directions, know the speed limit, find the exits on the interstate, find addresses, know that this store sells groceries and that one sells furniture, and so on and so forth. It's good to be able to read Dharma books. All of this is important, but in the end, it's all relative reality. And the ultimate reality is beyond conception. It is beyond words. It's beyond being able to be expressed in words. So what can be helpful, and this kind of goes back to a question that was asked early on, another approach to these afflictive emotions is to realize that all of it, this inner critic, it's just words. It's good to get to know it and analyze it and become friends with it, but it's also good to understand that ultimately it's just words and it has no reality to it. It's just whatever we are projecting on it. So to kind of sum this up, with an understanding of relative reality and ultimate reality, you still understand that if you go out and sit in the middle of an interstate highway, which has no reality, your body, which has no reality, will be hit by a car, which has no reality, and you will suffer an illusory death and experience a lot of illusory pain. So you have to take into consideration the way relative reality works, but with a viewpoint of the ultimate. So I'm going to open this up for questions. The question was raised about ultimate reality and relative reality. Are they two different things, or are they related in some way? And very simply, the ultimate reality is the ultimate of relative reality. And relative reality is the relative of ultimate reality, that they are not two separate things. That would be dualistic. A Buddha would see the way we sentient beings see things, but would realize that it is an illusion, and he would see them from the ultimate as well. So take water, for instance. Now, there are 6 realms in samsara. Starting from the lowest one, it is the hell realm. And again, this is created by the projections of beings in the hell realm. In the hell realm, water would be seen like a river of acid, or a river of molten lava, or ice frozen. There are cold hells too. In the hungry ghost realm, water is seen as being revolting, like pus and blood. In the animal realm, and the animal's karma is closest to ours, and we can see the animals. Some animals see water as a home, like fish, amphibians, certain mammals like whales, and other animals, it depends. They drink it. Some animals like to swim. My part Labrador retriever. Now, I live out in a rural area and did hobby farming and had a stock tank, and his idea of drinking water in the summertime was jumping into the stock tank, and when he got up to his neck, then he would drink. So he viewed water as something that was essential to be in. He loved it. And cats, to the best of my knowledge, they like to avoid getting wet. They do not like to jump into a stock tank and take a swim. But this is the way an animal looks at water, maybe something to drink, something to live in, something to avoid, something to jump into. Humans see it as a drinking, bathing, washing your car, watering your lawn, industrial processes, and so on and so forth. We find it very useful. Bottled water. There are 2 God realms, and the gods in both realms would view water as being a bliss-producing elixir. And a Buddha would see that this is how beings in these different realms see it, but he would also see it as it is, which is from the absolute, which is beyond conception, beyond words. So I'm going to go on just a little bit more here, and that is that each of us live in our own, you could say, cocoon or silo. And our reality, our relative reality, is different from everybody else's in certain ways. Us humans, we all share a certain amount of relative reality. But on the other hand, Uh, you have people saying, and I told him, I don't understand why you don't understand me. And they work together. Uh, you can be married for 50 years and still not understand your spouse as well as your spouse understands your spouse. Um, and this is a huge problem because people think that the way they interpret the world, interpret their experience, interpret the way people close to them are, is only their interpretation rather than the way things are. So it's very, very good to avoid jumping to conclusions and thinking that you understand other people. It's really good to listen. People like it when you listen to them, as opposed to when you tell them what you think or what you think they should be thinking.